Hello and welcome here to Best of the West, a National League West podcast here for Blake Street Banner. I'm your host, Skylar Timmons, and, well, last week, Kenneth Weber had to hold down the fort himself. Well, he's doing the same to me. I was a little sick last week, a little bit of a stomach bug going around, but all is well. But Kenneth decided to abandon me for the Colorado Avalanche. Who does that? Uh, having fun. And hopefully we'll get Kenneth back next week and we'll get the gang back together. But we're flying solo tonight, so we appreciate you hopping along in with us this evening. Be sure to follow along in the chat and just party along as we get through this. But spring training is underway. Games are fully in full swing. It's really fun. I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in. For me, watching the Rockies, it's been a lot of fun. It's awesome to have baseball back on a TV, be able to just enjoy that part of the spring again and know that that's right around the corner because a lot of the other sports starting to wind down. We're getting to the playoffs here for around the corner for hockey and basketball, but really it's the sounds of spring and the sounds of summer really coming through. It's fun to watch. And the thing across baseball, I think right now, especially in spring training, is watching the different storylines that are happening across the league in the National League West. There's a lot of interesting places, a lot of interesting names, faces, getting new looks across the league. And so it's just a fun time of year. And it's really this, I think the big thing with spring training is really a lot of the impressions being made in camp. And for fans, it's their opportunity for fans to get their first look and start developing kind of, thoughts about the team for the coming year. It can start developing some optimism, probably a lot of pessimism for some, but it's just an opportunity to see the standing of your team going into the season, and that's probably one of the funnest parts about spring training. You're hunting down, where can I watch these teams? Where can I watch a game? Can I listen to it? I'm sure there's a lot of folks that you get glued to the phone. There's always a tab open at work on the computer during the day where, hey, you're looking for that game day, the game day updates to watch. And I know for me growing up, that's usually what it was, hunting down those links and making a free MLB account. And I remember being in like a computer class in high school, and I'd bring my headphones and I'd be jacking into the computer to listening to the Rockies game in the middle of class when I'm working on word projects and stuff, learning how to use PowerPoint and all things like that. But it's a fun time of year and a lot of things to watch. And the National League West, as we followed in the show, there's a lot of interesting things going around and a lot of initial takeaways and things to look at after this really first week of spring training, so to speak, of games and everything. And so throughout the show, that's what I'm going to focus on, talking around here of first impressions and things I've noticed around the division from guys here in the National League West. So we got to kick things off. The Dodgers, they have games right around the corner where they're getting ready to head out to Tokyo to kick off the season for a couple of games. Feels like with the Dodgers, it's the Dodgers. They've got all the big offseason. They brought in all these big moves, all these big names. They are a powerhouse team. And so when it comes to spring training, it's a lot of, well, are they going to be as good as we all expect them to be? And for the most part, yeah, probably. That's the big thing. But for the Dodgers, it's still ironing out the kinks and getting ready for what's going to happen. They've taken it a little bit slow, easing in more of their big names. But the big one, I think, for them is figuring out that starting rotation. And no, there's question marks around it. Mostly it's been the durability going into the year. And so it's tough when immediately in spring training you start getting the news that there's injuries popping up. Bobby Miller takes a line drive to the head. Luckily, it looks like he's okay. Everything squared away, not much to worry about. But it gets you thinking of, this isn't the right time that you want to see as many starting pitchers as they have in that depth. You don't want to see the Dodgers start losing guys and immediately see that that depth start to get tested. But really, it's who's going to be healthy come opening day. And I think a big step for them was Dustin May being able to go out there, after dealing with the Tommy John surgery, recovering from that, and then he has to get the emergency, esophageal, surgery thing when he couldn't breathe and all that stuff. For him to be able to come back out on the mound, have a really solid outing, his first go around, that speaks a lot of how the Dodgers are going to use that, that depth and how much they're going to need it going through the season. You're going to need guys to overcome some adversity. And there's a lot of guys coming back from injuries. Tony Gonsolin and another guy. Can these guys come back, be healthy, and contribute to this rotation? And Dustin May kicks that off, which is awesome. You get to see him come in and be solid. He shows some emotion on the mound. You love to see that kind of stuff from a guy who's gone through quite a bit, who's been through the ringer a bit. Like, yeah, he's with the Dodgers, the evil empire, but you still feel for the guy, and you want him to be able to do what he loves. And so I think that's one of the big things to focus on when you're looking at impressions and takeaways from this first batch of spring training is, can the Dodgers can their pieces fall into place? As weird as that sounds for the defending World Series champion team, who can pretty much buy whoever they want to fill their roster, to look and see what guys can fill in gaps and really play their role, it's huge for them. And it's good to see that for some guys. A part of that, too, is a big guy for them, Blake Snell, who comes in and their big free agent signing, one of their big free agent signings among many. Like they've got like 5 of them. Who isn't a big free agent signing for him? But Blake Snell able to come in and make his Dodgers debut in spring training, comes out pretty well in his first go-around here. And he's that one that you're hoping, along with a lot of these other new faces that we can talk about throughout, is these guys with their new teams, new jerseys, new environments, that can they be who these teams need them to be? And immediately, Blake Snell picks up right where he left off and dazzles. In his one start, only 1 inning, he did throw 30 pitches, so he's shaking off the rust a bit, but gets through. 1 strikeout in 1 inning, gives up a hit, but it's nice and clean. He's just out there on the mound, and I think that's what you're going to look for with Blake Snell and a lot of the pitchers for the Dodgers is, how are these guys looking, and are they going to be able to provide enough of what the Dodgers need to back up that offense, that booming offense that they have in store? But it's, let's see, Snell looks to be settling in nicely. He likes the environment. He's in pretty much where he wants to be, with a winning organization who has the tools to help him be the best pitcher that he can possibly be. So far, it looks like, even if it's a super tiny sample size of just 1 inning, he's got what he knows what he's doing. And I think he's going to be right in that spot. But moving along, talking about offense and other things like that, they're got to figure out a lot of things. Offense is rolling. And even here in the early part of spring training, already likely one of the best teams in the league when it comes to a lot of things. They're going to shake off the team. They can afford to move things around, but they already lead all of baseball in walks here in spring training. They've got 7 home runs, so 61 hits. They're up there in OPS, slugging, on base, average. The Dodgers offense, players, whoever they may be, are exactly where you'd expect them to be. And there aren't as many battles. They're a little bit more settled around. But it becomes interesting in those early part of it of who will break through for them in those little role-playing positions. David Bodie, who's coming in as a non-roster invitee, first baseman, he's getting plenty of action. He's turned out well with an OPS of 1.775. He's got a home run, 6 ribbies. He's playing a role. Max Muncy picking up where he's left off in the past. He's rolling in. Mookie Betts doing Mookie Betts things. you can look up and down that list of tons of guys, and you're like, okay, yeah, the early part of spring training, these guys are hitting and they're looking good. And so that's a huge one for him. And I think the interesting thing is what's going to come of Eddie Rosario. He gets off to the early impression, hits a home run in their first game of spring training. What role will he play, if at all? A former notable part for the Braves in the postseason. Is he a guy who is going to sneak through, crack the roster, and displace guys like an Andy Pajes somehow, or James Outman? Some of these guys, these younger guys, is he going to sneak in and snag a spot, kind of like a Jason Hayward in the past, an extra platoon outfielder coming off the bench who can just be an extra solid piece, and then give them some time to send down some of these guys that are struggling? It's some of these role players that aren't quite hitting yet. Yeah, the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freemans, the Shohei Otanis. Those guys, you don't have to worry about them in spring training, and obviously you don't need to. Mookie's hitting 500. Now, he's doing his thing. He's doing Mookie things. But it's some of those extra role playing guys who aren't the big name stars. How do they fit in with this team? And it's still, I think, getting figured out. Dalton Rushing is making an impression. Can he crack through? Can he find a role on this team in some capacity? It's the fun things to see for even a powerhouse like the Dodgers. They still have to go through that process of figuring out who do we have? Who are the extra guys that are going to impress us and break camp with us? It's fun stuff to figure out, but really interesting going forward for them. Last thing here on the Dodgers before we move on, it comes down to Ha-Seong Kim, another one of their big signings of the offseason, coming over from Korea. Ha-Seong Kim, it's been debated. Is he going to start the year with the big league team, or could he get sent down to the minors, start there to work on his swing and adjust? So far, in just 5 games, he's made 12 plate appearances, so small sample size, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, a sub 100 batting average, .083, 214 on base, and then he's slugging at .083. So obviously there's going to be the learning curve for Ha-Seong Kim. It's going to be see how second base pans out. Well, hey, if Ha-Seong Kim needs to move down to the minors to get some work and help with his transition, well, then Tommy Edman probably slides into second base, plays a little bit more there. Well, then that opens up a spot for Andy Pajes or James Outman to play center field more often. That's the flexibility that the Dodgers have. And yeah, that Gavin Lux move opens up a can of worms for the Dodgers where they're hoping, hey, yeah, like hopefully Ha-Seong Kim can be the guy to slot in there, but there's going to be those growing pains and that transition. So that's something to watch these next couple of weeks in spring training as they figure it out. But second base, that whole middle infield, because you've got Mookie slotted in at shortstop, but how long will he even stay there? Because they'll constantly shift things around, or they'll mix up the plan again, just trying to make the best team possible. Who knows? But that second base up in the air now, and it's the Dodgers threw a bunch of money at everything for their roster, but it doesn't mean that everything's going to work out. And you'd hope Ha-Seong Kim could come over and just immediately have success. And again, it's spring training. You can take everything with a grain of salt. Come opening day, he could be just perfectly fine, or goes up to Japan and boom, just does great there. But those impressions and things looking at here for the Dodgers early on, interesting stuff. But rotation getting tested. Offense is looking good from your main guys. Blake Snell easily settling in, even though it's only 1 inning. But hey, it's baseball. As Bud Black likes to say, that's baseball. But yeah, Dodgers, looking good so far. They're looking like still that team to beat in this early part of spring training. And that's exactly what you expect from them. But We're working here on Best of the West. Appreciate the folks tuning in. Flying solo tonight. Kenneth is out at the Avalanche game, so hopefully he's having a lot of fun and all that good stuff. Never been to an Avalanche game. Those tickets are a little pricey, my friends, or at least a little too much for me. But moving right along here, talking about impressions and spring training. Let's move out to San Diego to the Padres. Not a whole lot. The Padres have kind of been that weird team all offseason where we've talked about a bunch on this show of what are they doing? And a big part of it is because of the ownership, kerfuffles behind the scenes, the lawsuits, and then Peter Seidler's brother now getting installed as the controller of the team, and all these things they have to figure out. Are they gonna? They've been trying to shed payroll and other things, but then they haven't, and they're in this weird place. But there are a few things that have really stood out with the Padres in this first little bit of the season. And number one is what's going on in left field. You know, it goes out to they brought in Connor Joe, Jason Hayward to kind of act as a platoon situation in left field there for the Padres. But the main guy that was kind of penciled in was the 24-year-old Tirso Ornelas from Tijuana, Mexico. Finally gets in. He's looking to make his big league debut, so to speak. They're finally make it, and he's come out swinging here in spring training. In 5 games, he's got his 10 at bats. He's hitting 500, 583 on base, a 1.1 slugging in just a little bit. He's got a home run, couple of ribbies, couple of 3 doubles. So the small sample size, which is always tough with spring training, got to take these small sample sizes. But so far, he's looking good. He's playing the part of a left-handed bat that can come out and be a contributor in that lineup. Now, will he be the everyday starter in left field? Who knows? But he's making that case for himself to at least get a spot on the team and then try and make that spot his own. And that's good to see. You love that in spring training where you see a rookie who's kind of unproven coming in and trying to fight and make a spot his own. And Ornelas is doing that. It's going to be hard to supplant Connor Joe or Jason Hayward, but even then, those guys aren't everyday players. They're platoon guys. They're the bench guys. The Padres are just kind of planning on them being that platoon, but they can turn to Ornelas, and if he can make it his own, become that everyday starter, or even become the left side of the strong side of the platoon. What a great break for the Padres, who then can continue to look around and tinker with the roster. But then you get a young guy, he's 24, breaking through. That's encouraging. And it's nice to see a young guy another young guy for the Padres knocking down the door, because they've made so many big swings for free agents and these big trades. It's fun to see him hopefully break through, and it'll be nice to see. But Ornelas making it his own, and the same could be said for Eddie Rosario, who is mashing right-handed hitting, another platoon guy who's trying to break through, make a name for himself, and earn a more notable spot with the Padres. And he's gunning for that spot. 25 years old. No, not terrible year last year in 30 games with the Padres, but here in spring training, coming out strong. He's hitting 300. He's got a home run, 4 ribbies in 4 games thus far. He's got 3 hits, 2 of them extra bases. A lot of fun to see that coming out of Eddie Rosario. So you see some of the pieces for the Padres. These young guys probably be the next generation as they continue to shuffle that roster, cutting payroll and other such things. Nice to see some of these guys who can hopefully supplant and fill in as needed in the roster. But it's a good break for the Padres, who've had so many other weird things happening to them. But that's on them for that. And then shifting over to the rotation, a couple of guys here, not a whole lot to talk about with the Padres, but really 2 guys trying to make a name for themselves or just make a statement here in spring training that have gotten out to a good start. Stephen Kolek, you all remember him. He's been around for a little bit, but coming in, he's trying to make the Dodgers or the Padres rotation as a starter. Most of his first season last year, 5.21 ERA in 42 games, all out of the bullpen. Mostly in his career, working through the minors. He's kind of split time between being a starter, but mostly has been a reliever in his minor league career. 2023, he was mostly a reliever. So in his first major league season, not awful out of the bullpen. 46 and 2/3 innings, 39 strikeouts, 12 walks. Yeah, things to grow on as a young 26-year-old out of the bullpen. But coming into this season, he's looking to make that rotation. And so far, not too shabby, as that's a kind of the ironing out of that Padres rotation. So far, again, just a couple innings, made one start, 2 innings, had 2 strikeouts, 2 hits, and 2 innings. Not too shabby in your first go around, shaking off that rust, especially as a guy who's trying to make that transition from being a reliever and moving over. And yeah, while the innocent, you're making a good point. Mike Schilt has really done a huge part of this, and I think that's what's helping the Padres and helping guide guys like that we're talking about. Some of these rookies, that's a tough situation for guys to come into, battle with that behind the drama with the ownership, but then Schilt's handling it on the field, and that's probably allowing guys like Stephen Kolek to just focus on, okay, I'm coming in, I'm battling for a rotation spot. I'm going to come in, just do my thing. Who knows? They're going to get shielded away maybe from that ownership garbage thanks to their manager, and that'll allow these young guys, a lot of these young guys, to try and break through. And Kolek, so far, I know it's just 2 innings, but that would be huge for the Padres rotation. So I pull up their depth chart, because beyond that was one that was maybe kind of up in the air just a little bit, or at least a little shaky. Because yeah, we have the Dylan Cease, Michael King was good, Yu Darvish, Nick Pivetta they added on, and then Kyle Hart. So you got an established rotation, but you still need some guys who can supplement that in depth pieces that they can turn to. Kolek trying to move up that depth chart, and so far so good. You want a good solid outing in your first go around. Find a way, maybe you can sneak in, become a long reliever, or be that first man to get called up should an injury happen to somebody. So it's at least nice to see young guys making things a little bit more interesting and making a name for themselves there with the Padres. Where they're going. Matt Waldron, same guy who, no, I'm a no knuckleball lover. I love knuckleballers. I'm pretty sure everybody who's ever played catch has tried to throw a knuckleball in some variation of it. I know that my brother and I do all the time. But Matt Waldron has been coming into spring training. Dude is throwing more knuckleballs. It's knuckleball or bust for him to get that in his rotation bid or something of that nature. Proving himself like, yeah, I'm not. If I'm going to be a one-trick pony, I'm going to be a dang good one-trick pony. And all the best luck to him, but it can get hard with that knuckleball, because if you don't get it right, that sucker is getting blasted. And I think that's what Waldron kind of ran into last season, a little bit more. And best of luck to him. He's 28, still plenty of time for him to figure things out. And here in spring training, yeah, he's given up 1 run so far. He's only thrown 2 innings, 32 pitches, but a couple of strikeouts. So he's on point. He hasn't walked anybody among the few batters he's faced. Hopefully that's something he can carry on and bring the knuckleball back. There are far too few knuckleballers in this day and age, but a lot of youth coming up. Now you expect all the big names there for the Padres, and we'll still see how things pan out. If there's any extra deals here in camp as spring training winds on, but good to see some of these younger guys trying to figure things out, at least build up, whatnot. And yeah, Yeah, I think that's the big thing. A lot of us maybe think it's a knuckleball, but it's just the very slow ball that is up to the things of gravity. Uh, Fun times there, wild. But Padres, they're chugging along. I think we'll need some few more weeks with them to really get an idea of where they are. But so far, so good with some of those guys. Ornelas is the one to watch there for him, and hopefully he can crack through in left field. But moving out to the Diamondbacks, they're also another fun team, another team with didn't do a whole ton in the offseason, but the things they did do huge in bringing in Josh Naylor and Corbin Burns, and so far both looking the role. Corbin Burns, he's just thrown one inning. I believe he got like 3 strikeouts. So really quick and efficient doing Corbin Burns things, which is going to be huge for the for the Diamondbacks to have a legitimate ace like that to help frontline that rotation and maybe take a little pressure off the other guys as Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly kind of shake off the rust a little bit more and hopefully get back healthy and get rolling as the season goes. But it's good for Corbin Burns. Looked good in a Diamondbacks uniform. I think he's excited to be there. And he threw one of their first games of the of the of spring training and looked good. And you could just tell a different air there for the Diamondbacks. Of They have this guy, and you can just tell that difference for them to have a legitimate guy like that on their roster because it can just help out so many things to just have a legit ace that you can turn to. And so Burns looking good so far. No, not too much. And Isaac, welcome. Appreciate having you flying solo here. We're talking impressions from spring training, just first little bit of takeaways from these teams here in spring training, talking Diamondbacks and Corbin Burns. Yeah, he's looked good. Not much else to talk about there. But the thing that I really liked and looking at things for the Diamondbacks was Josh Naylor. And I was trying to look up Josh Naylor and looking at his stats. Dude is immediately fitting in, and that's been a question for the Diamondbacks coming in. So how is Josh Naylor going to fit in with this team and replace Christian Walker? That's basically what he's doing, is replacing that production for Christian Walker. And so far, the power hasn't shown up quite yet, but Josh Naylor, notably, not much of a power hitter in spring training. But in just 3 games, he's got 3 hits, couple of doubles, 5 total bases, 375 average, 1 strikeout, big looming lefty, power lefty at first base. He's slotted in nicely, and it's a nice compliment to Eugenio Suarez, your 2 corner infielder guys, left and right power hitters. I think that's going to create a good dynamic for that Diamondbacks lineup and help lengthen it out to help out the Corbin Carrolls and a lot of these other guys where they don't have to be the run producers. They don't have to be the power guys. That's what a Josh Naylor, that's what a Eugenio Suarez is. Solid defenders. They're not going to, I don't think they're winning gold gloves anytime soon. But it's going to be nice to see how Naylor fits in to help out a lot of these other guys in the roster. But thing that it's looking at, you look at his stats and hearing things, he's slimmed down a little bit. So he's probably in much better shape. There with the Diamondbacks, it should be a good year for Josh Naylor and see what happens. Maybe the Diamondbacks, if you like him good enough, can figure out an extension and prevent him from going to free agency. But as I mentioned, his presence can help a Corbin Carroll, and Isaac pointed it out here. Corbin Carroll's looking good. He shook off that rust after a rough first half and finished the 2024 season on a better note. But he's a guy that the Diamondbacks need to get to those MVP caliber numbers. And so far, 3 games, he's got a couple of dingers, 5 home run or 5 ribbies, 429 average, 2 stolen bases, couple of strikeouts, just 7 at bats. That's good. Small sample size, but coming out of the gate strong, getting those those reps in, build that confidence. If he can carry that into the regular season, oh baby, yes, absolutely. Corbin Carroll, with his caliber and like where he is in that talent level, really should be in that MVP conversation every single year. No, he's just one of those types of players that can do so much for a team that when he's rolling, he should be in that conversation every single year. And it's gonna be tough in the National League to displace Shohei Ohtani, especially if he keeps doing what he does offensively, and then he adds in the pitching aspect this season and does well there. It's going to be really tough, I think, for voters to overlook that. And no, hopefully, no, who knows? But you hope that at some point, guys can do something really special that is just demanding of like, yes, he is the MVP. And I think Corbin Carroll's one of those guys that definitely could. And good to see that out of the gate here early in spring training. It's one of those young leaders for the D-backs. They're going to need him, especially when you're going up trying to take down the Dodgers. You need him to lead you, and I think he can. He definitely can coming out of the gate. And then you get that support of a Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, a lot of these other guys, Ketel Marte, and then you have Burns leading the way on the mound. Diamondbacks are going to be, I know it's hard to say, or it's hard to imagine that, but I think the Diamondbacks can be better than people expect. And it's going to be interesting. You got Geraldo Perdomo, who they signed to that extension, locking down shortstop or that middle infield position. I think the D-backs so far, you just get that takeaway that they're going to be better than people think maybe going into 2025. And one last thing I wanted to touch on here with the Diamondbacks before we move on is the closer role. And Diamondbacks have mentioned it's kind of a three-pony race at the moment, which is it's a good problem to have. Torey Lovullo, no time about how it's really not an easy decision thus far, as you've got AJ Puck, the lefty, and then righties Justin Martinez and Kevin Ginkel. They all made their debuts on Tuesday in spring training, all through scoreless innings. They faced the better parts of the lineup earlier in the game. He's trying to iron that out. There's those three guys, and you can mix and match. It's a good problem to have maybe 2, 3, sometimes even 4 guys that you could turn to late in the game. It's too early to tell at the moment of who's going to win the closer role and a lot of the other pitching. They're just still kind of inching guys in of the mainstays. But it's a good problem to have. And there's a lot better pitching. It's that bullpen, I think, is still going to be a little shaky for the Diamondbacks, that we've talked about before. But once they start getting things settled into place, especially starting with that closer role, by the end of spring training, I think we'll have a lot clearer idea of what to take away from that Diamondbacks bullpen. They've got pieces. It's just finding the right slots to put guys in to finish the puzzle. Because you can't just throw anybody into that 9th inning role. Not everybody can be a setup man or a closer. There's guys who will legitimately always pitch better in the 5th, 6th inning. And I think that's what the Diamondbacks are trying to figure out. Well, yeah, it's probably more so Puck and Martinez, but Ginkel will get opportunities, and you can always pitch to platoon situations. Oh, Puck, he's going to start here because there's like 2 lefties coming up in the bottom of the 9th. And instead we're going to go with Martinez because he throws better against these guys. So Lovullo, he'll figure it out. But I think the Diamondbacks, they can get creative a little bit there in that closer situation. But other than that, like Diamondbacks looking good. I think there's a lot to be happy about and excited about with the Diamondbacks in these early first impressions. And I'm excited to see more of what Burns can do pitching in the desert, because they've had those big contracts before of the notable guys of like Zach Greinke, Madison Bumgarner, those big swings, but they didn't really pan out. Those guys were, in a sense, kind of slightly past the prime of what made them good. Burns is still in the mix of that. And talking about Corbin Carroll being an MVP, Burns could definitely be in that Cy Young conversation yet again this season. And he's looking good. He's going to be a dangerous one this year. And going to wreak havoc on some NL West teams across the division this year. But Diamondbacks, we're having fun with them. We'll move on here to the Giants, and then we'll close out with the Rockies because self-proclaimed, a little bit more my area of expertise, and I can wax hours on the Rockies. But San Francisco Giants, not a whole lot wanted to touch on with them. The big one cover of this episode is Justin Verlander, and it's a big adjustment for Verlander. I was amazed to read that this is his first spring training not in Florida. Guy's been around for 20 some odd years, and it just never occurred to me, oh, he's never been to spring training in Arizona. So brand new experience for him this season. And it's cool to see he came to the Giants, particularly Buster Posey brings him in because he can be that mentor role for this team and help them get back to winning ways. And it's cool to see Verlander coming in, and he's excited about that opportunity to be able to mentor some of these guys. No, there's that video where somebody's throwing a bullpen before games even started, but he's throwing a bullpen, and Verlander and the other guys, he's just sitting right back there and looking like a pitching coach, giving him advice and words of encouragement. Like, oh yeah, that's a nice pitch. If you bring it in just a few more inches, that'll be even better. And the guy throws the pitch, and oh yeah, it's even better. So it's cool to see him embracing that role. Now he's 42, so he's been around the block. He's been around a lot of rookies, and I'm sure that's something that he revels in. And what a great opportunity for a lot of those Giants guys. It's good to see that they're having that opportunity to learn from one of the best. Yeah, he's a little older and dealing with injuries and things. Last season wasn't that great for him, but hey, he's looking good thus far and embracing that role of a mentor, which is some of the Giants need going forward into this season. But so far in spring training, he's made the one appearance, 2 innings through 13 pitches, so nice, quick, and efficient against the Rockies. He did give up a home run, but that was the only hit that he gave up. 1 walk, 1 strikeout. So coming out, 2 innings, he's out there healthy, looked good, looked like Justin Verlander, not prime Justin Verlander, but still solid. But he's making that impression on both sides, both on and off the field. They'll take what they can on the field and hope he can just reach into the fountain of youth, take a sip, and go back to what he was even just a couple of years ago in Houston when he was healthy, but now has this opportunity going forward. And I think he's making that impression, and you could probably talk to any number of those pitchers and what those conversations are like having Verlander around, and I'm sure a lot of them probably have a lot of good things to say. And that's nice that's great for the Giants, who are looking for a new identity and changing their philosophy. And it's interesting to just see what he can do moving forward. And I really hope he can just find some magic one last time, perhaps. And then who knows? Justin Verlander's never going away. I think he's made that point. He wants to pitch till he's 50. So he's only 42. He's got 8 years left. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Justin Verlander. But good to see him thus far, healthy, ready to go, and I'm excited to see just what he can do. He's closing in, on a lot of those milestones and other things. So hopefully he can get it all figured out as we move forward. Other things here that I wanted to touch on, trying to run through my stats here. It helps when I have a guy behind the scenes, but we're running solo tonight. So appreciate you all tuning in and following along as I talk to myself. But Isaac, I'm not too sure. I haven't looked into it too much yet between Hayden Birdsong and Kyle Harrison. But I think that's one of them. That's one of those things I think is really interesting for the Giants is they have all these pieces in there, but it's figuring out how guys fit in. Because presumably you've got Logan Webb, you've got Robbie Ray and Justin Verlander, those are basically your three guys. And then probably thrown in, Jordan Hicks, who likely gets the bid. They paid him that contract, and he likely gets that bid. So then it falls to those last three guys of a Kyle Harrison, Hayden Birdsong, Landon Rope is in that mix as well. So I haven't followed them too much early on, but definitely something we'll probably talk on here pretty soon. As well, I think that's the fun part of seeing the famous celebrities. I remember Kyle Tucker with the Rockies. Was looking for Vanessa Hudgens, so I'm sure Kate Upton will show up there and in the Bay from time to time. Bring some notoriety. Hey, free publicity, baby. If it works for the NFL, it can work for the Giants. But she's no Taylor Swift. But I don't know how popular Kate Upton is among regular baseball fans. Who knows? I don't think she'll bring in as big of a demographic. But we'll see. Some of those young guys, that's definitely something we'll talk about more in the future, Isaac. What's going on with those back into that rotation as these guys get more action? Last thing on the Giants I wanted to touch on that was brought up here was talking about Jung-Ho Lee. And so far, we kind of got robbed. He played for a little bit last season, and then he gets injured. And so we don't really see him a little bit. So he's had all that time to just kind of rehab and get back into working shape. So it's good to see him back in action, and he's going to be a big piece, I think, for those Giants offensively if he can stay healthy and get back in action. Just 37 games last year, 2 home runs, 13 strikeouts, 10 walks, right in there with him, 262 average. So not too shabby in his first little bit of time in the big leagues, but so far in spring training, looking good out of the gate. 3 games thus far, he's got 2 hits. One of them's a home run that he hit off of Rockies prospect Chase Dollander. Got 2 strikeouts, 1 walk, 286 average, 444 on base. So he's easing back in, looking good so far. But even in that little bit, you can watch him. Dude's looking good, and he's going to be a huge part for those Giants this year offensively as they try to figure out their new just personality and philosophy as a team. And you've got Matt Chapman, Willie Adames there on the infield. Okay. Now, trying to figure out maybe the rest of that infield, Tyler Fitzgerald, all these guys. But in that outfield, it's got to be championed there anchored by Jung-Ho Lee in center field. You got Heliot Ramos, a lot of these other guys to fill in around the gaps. But I think up the middle, right there with Jung-Ho Lee, it's going to be exciting to watch him. And so far, so good. And that's exactly what the Giants need. And I'm excited to see what he can do a little bit more as the season goes on. He's only 26, so still plenty of time for him to get rolling here. But yeah, the Giants are going to need him. But it's nice to see these guys coming in and just making that impact and making good impressions behind the scenes. And Verlander, a big part of that. I think he's going to be a huge boon for those Giants, just on and off the field for everybody, not just pitchers, but the hitters too. Some of these young guys that can just turn to him for advice. Here's a World Series champion, a future Hall of Famer, multiple Cy Young winner. It's going to be huge, and I'm excited to see just what the Giants can do under Buster Posey this season, and just really this, in a sense, a retooling year. We hear teams talk about retooling. This is a retooling year for the San Francisco Giants, and so far so good in spring training. Happy to see what they can do. But rolling things on here, last bit of the show, and talking the Colorado Rockies. And oddly enough, some of my bias will show through, but I think we all know about the stuff with the Rockies. Yeah, they're not going to be winning the division anytime soon. But it's 2025, and specifically this camp, the big takeaway for the Rockies when it comes to the spring training camp is just the excitement of the youth. And that's the big thing. The Rockies they've needed to rebuild. They've needed to just turn things over and turn it over to the youth and just fully embrace a new Generation R like they did back in the day. But it feels like in this spring training, that's the messaging, and just really the thing for fans to latch onto is just the excitement of this youth, this young core that's coming up, and the young core that's already here. Start at the top of things, though. Brenton Doyle has looked good thus far. He had that grand slam. He's had a couple home runs already this spring training, looking like a leadoff guy, picking things up, continuing the trend of good offensive production last season. He's doing his role. Ezequiel Tovar working on those strikeouts. Yeah, he's already drew a couple of walks. He only had not a whole lot last season, like 30 something. Already had like 3 in a couple of games this season, this spring training. So you're seeing some of that growth from Tovar, maybe being a little bit more selective at the plate, and that's helping his game a little bit. Big one is Michael Toglia coming through, the big mongoose. He's looking like that bona fide slugger that the team is desperately hoping he could be in the heart of that order. Christian Size over on X had some of those stats, but it's good to see with Michael Toglia so far, 5 for 11, 5 ribbies, a couple of home runs, looking good. He's doing everything. He's drawing those walks, being patient at the plate. Everything you need out of Michael Toglia, he's providing at the moment. Plus that solid defense. So you got those 3 guys, established guys from last season, continuing to carry the baton into this coming season. Awesome to see. But really, it's that big part. It's the other youth that are coming up. One is in the bullpen. The bullpen's electric. Seth Halverson, power throwing righty. You've got a lot of those other guys. Luis Peralta, Angel Chivi, Jaden Hill, Zach Agnos. A lot of these guys are starting to come in. Hill's been roughed up a little bit. But other guys, it's just this excitement coming from this bullpen that's being supported by young talent. Then it's putting the pressure on guys like Justin Lawrence and Jake Bird, who've got to perform because you got young guys, kicking at their heels, which is pretty fun to watch. And so you've got this bullpen that could be really good. That's supported by like the Tyler Kinleys and the Scott Alexander, perhaps somebody else. So there's excitement to be had every time must-watch guys coming out of that bullpen. Even the non-roster, Jeffrey Yan trying to make his debut. He's leaping 15 feet in the air after he strikes out a guy like he's Super Mario. Excitement on the field, and it's fun to watch. Opposing guys probably hate it, but if you're a fan of his team, heck yeah. Let's jump up as high as we can after a strikeout. Good times. But there's so much fun to be had there. But really what comes down to part of that, probably the 2 guys bringing the most excitement, or 3 guys bringing the most excitement from the youth. One, Chase Dollander, who looked every bit the big league starter the team hopes he could be when he made his debut against the Giants. The crime of it is nobody could watch it because the game was untelevised. Nobody could listen to it because it wasn't on the radio. But he faced off against Justin Verlander there against the Giants, facing pretty much a big league lineup. And yeah, he gave up the home run to Jung Ho Lee, but still in his 2 innings, this stuff was playing against those big league hitters. Struck out Matt Chapman, and it looked every bit of it. And so the Rockies, I'm sure, are really excited about that. And it seems like they really are going to give him every opportunity to make that big league roster. Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post talking about, unless there's unforeseen circumstances, some just wild happens, Dollander's going to make that opening day roster, because why let him waste away in the minors when he could get big league experience now in that back in that rotation. So that's really interesting to hear. But there's so much excitement around Dollander. It's fun to watch. And while it's interesting, you can listen to a random White Sox game on a Tuesday where the Rockies beat their brains out. I don't know, that scheduling stuff is weird. But no, on Thursday we'll get to see another young guy in Gabriel Hughes, who another one of those top pitching prospects, lost 2024 because of Tommy John surgery. Got to the Arizona Fall League in the spring, in last fall, get healthy. He's made 1 appearance, looked really solid in his first appearance of the spring, and just another one of those guys that when they take him out of Gonzaga, this college arm, could be on that fast track to the big leagues. And who knows, like he probably won't crack the roster out of camp, but to make those conversations a little harder, to make them even consider it, is going to be huge for him. And he's looked good so far, and interested to see what he does in his next start. And as spring goes on, but he's another one of those guys to be excited about. What a world we live in, where pitching prospects are something to be very excited about when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, and it's been a long time coming. No, they usually maybe had like one, maybe two, but to have multiple guys that you can be excited about from the pitching standpoint is really a really fun part, really fun thing to have if you're a Rockies fan or even just cover the team. But one of the other main guys that's really putting his bid in and this really making an impression. We're talking about impressions. Here's a guy who's making a big impression in spring training already. Zac Veen, the 2020 ninth overall pick by the Rockies. He's been roughed up a little bit in the minors. Injuries and maybe some stubbornness where he's trying to play through injuries, and that's not working out for him. He's lost some time, so it's been trying to find consistency. He's, again, coming into spring training and not being deterred. Dude's coming out playing with his hair on fire, which I wouldn't be surprised if he dyed it some sort of fire color. Currently, he's beach blonde, so I think he's sticking with that for a little bit until he maybe gets onto the big league roster. Then he'll go back to purple. But he's playing with his hair on fire, running with reckless abandon like he does, stealing bases. No, he's showing off the power with a couple of home runs that he's had, one with an absolute pimp job of launching the bat in the air with an epic flip. He's bringing this electricity, I think, that the team's needed. And, he can bring that electricity. And seeing on social media, I know Christian Saez over at DNVR, friend of Blake Street Banner, compared him to P. Crow Armstrong for the Chicago Cubs, which I feel like is a great comp of just the electricity the guy can bring on the base paths, in the outfield at the plate, the flair he can play the game with. That can be fun. He's not trying to be the huge jerk on the field, but it's something that just plays with a little bit of that swagger and joy of the game. And I think that's something the Rockies need. And that's an impression that he's making. And it's good to hear Bud Black out there praising him. When he hits that home run, Bud Black's on the mic and praises the pimp, the bat flip and all that stuff. So it's good to see. Yeah, there's things for him to still learn, learning pains, growing pains. But he's bringing electricity that the team needs. And guys like Jordan Beck, Nolan Jones, not off to a great start in spring training. Both of them are struggling a little bit at the plate, trying to get something rolling. Probably Jones more so than Beck. Beck's at least making some contact, but definitely not where he wants to be yet. Veen can enter that conversation and say, no, don't forget about me. I deserve a spot in that outfield. So, no, both him and Dollander, if there's two prospects to pick of like, this guy has a legitimate shot to make the big league roster out of camp, I think it's those two. That's the impression you can get from them. And just so many other exciting youth. Kyle Karros, I won't touch on, but he's looking good. Yanquiel Fernandez, Benny Montgomery, so many of these guys. There's a lot to be excited about with the youth, and it's fun stuff to see with the Rockies. You just hope a couple of them can break through and supplement some of these guys. Because in spring training, that's the fun part, is the offense is rolling, and a part of it is because of these young guys. They're coming out playing with excitement, and Doyle, Toglia, Tovar, yeah, they're doing their offensive stuff, but so is Kyle Karros. So is a couple of these other guys, Zac Veen, that's really making an impact. So a lot of fun to take from Rockies camp. And hey, when we approach the slog that will be the 162 game season of who knows what will happen there, savor the victories while you can, because who knows how many we'll get in 2025. So I'll enjoy the spring training ones. But last thing really quick, Kris Bryant hit a home run. It actually went like 112 off the bat, 460 feet, an effortless power swing, which he can do. It's just if his back can hold up. And so far, hopefully that's a good omen of things to come. Need him to do it in the regular season, but good to see him there a little bit. And hopefully maybe then the youth around him can help him out. But who knows? But yeah, Rockies, be excited about that youth. Those kids are playing and they're having fun with it. And it just make you hope like hopefully some of these guys can crack through once we get through. But so it's been fun so far. But yeah, a lot of good things happening in the National League West across spring training. A lot to be excited about. The new faces that have joined some of these teams. Good to see. Look forward to seeing what Roki Sasaki can do once he actually gets into some games. He's only thrown like some sim one, gave up a home run. So Dodgers lost the signing, I guess. But he'll get some more regular action here sometime soon. And we'll just see what happens over these next couple of weeks. Baseball season is right around the corner. We are now about a month away from everybody playing regular season games. The Dodgers have to be those weirdos and go play in Tokyo for a couple games and then go back into spring training, all that weird scheduling stuff. But yeah, fun stuff. Fun across the league and a lot of impressions to be made. And be sure to let us know in the comments and all that good stuff about impressions you've taken from spring training thus far. And as always, be sure to follow your Blake Street Banner over on YouTube and your favorite podcasting platforms and all of the social medias, wherever you can find them. Typically, Blake Street Banner. You can find it Best of the West every Wednesday here live on YouTube and Twitch, and as well as on your favorite podcasting platforms a couple days after that. But you can find me over on Twitter at Skylar Timmons or over on Blue Sky stimmons13.bsky.social. You can also find me writing for purpleroad.com. I write the Wednesday Rock Piles and look forward to game coverage as we get into the year. You can also find me over at fansfirstsports.com. That's FFSN.com. They changed the domain, so I have to, that FFSN.com can get hard to say. You can also find me over at Rocky Mountain Rooftop doing a regular Rockies podcast over there as well with my good buddy Evan Lang. But thank you all for joining me tonight. Fun doing solo. Went way longer than I thought I would, but hey, you get me talking. I'm a pro at talking to myself. But hopefully Kenneth has fun at the Avalanche game, and we'll get him back here next week. But until next time, I'm Skylar Timmons. This has been Best of the West, and remember, the best is yet to come.